Hello, Dr. Joe. How are you?
Very good, Kasha. I'm always happy to be with you.
Thank you for finding time for us. Thank you for finding time for me. And good to see you because we last time we spoke, it was, I don't know, March, April, the beginning of madness, the new reality. So today, couple months in, I don't know if the dust settled in, but definitely we have maybe got used to a little bit or getting irritated again. So if you can tell me where you are with in this moment of time and what's your thoughts about now.
Well, it's a great question, and I'll answer it on two levels. First of all, um, I'm a glass half full type of person, and when the global pandemic happened, and there was social isolation and fear that everybody was going to get infected because of a virus, and I watched how people responded, and I saw it as a great opportunity. And first thing is I wasn't going to be victimized by the conditions that were in front of me. And what a victim, in my definition, is whether you talk to a person and say, "Why are you this way?" And they say, "I'm this way because of the weather, because of the traffic, because of a pandemic, because of the news, because of my ex." What they're really saying is something in their outer environment is really influencing or controlling the way they're feeling and thinking. So, what that means then is that their environment is somehow victimizing them. They're victims to their environment. So, those people are not conscious of doing that because they're thinking and feeling equal to everything that's in front of them. But the way we think and feel actually produces an outcome in our environment. So we'd have to change the way we think and feel to be greater than the conditions in our environment. But the person who's living in fear because of some microorganism is actually weakening their immune system, because that's what fear does, chronic stress. And they're actually creating the reality that they're afraid of because they're more vulnerable to their environment, and something in their environment, albeit a bacteria, a virus, the traffic, whatever, is going to cause them to have a weakened response to their environment. And when that happens, the immune system dials down. There's all the energy is going for some threat or emergency in the outer world. There's no energy in our inner world for growth and repair. So there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that all the things that we have to do in order to honor the spread of this is one thing, but I just don't believe personally, me personally, that I'm going to get infected or I'm going to get sick or I'm going to die because of a virus that is really just some type of modified influenza. The second thing is that I saw it as a great opportunity for people to break out of routine. They're not through the same unconscious set of behaviors and choices, doing the exact same thing, going to work, seeing the same people, doing the same things, having their coffee at the same place. They're out of routine. And what a great opportunity to break from routine and step out of the known. And the fundamental question I thought would be, who do I want to be when I reemerge? How do I want to live my life? What a great time, And so it's been a really creative time for me. Sure, I really miss doing events. I mean, we had such incredible momentum in the last 2 years with miracles and healings and mystical experiences and people creating better lives and really applying this work to see that when they change the way they think and feel and they start producing an effect in their outer environment, they're believing less that they're the victim of their life and more of the creator of their life. And that's something that a person has to really experience once to begin to realize they're not going to be as seduced by their environment. So during this time, Kasha, we're rebuilding a new website. We're rebranding our company. We're building our own platforms. I've cut numerous meditations in the studio. We've done some really great online courses. We have a great online course that'll be coming up at the end of the year here for beginners. I've listened to meditations that I did 3 or 4 years ago and just, after I'm doing them all over again, I'm just like, what was I thinking at that time? I'm not the same person. So I've been in this kind of very creative state. And yes, this is probably the first time in my life where I'm restrained from the freedom of being able to choose exactly what I want to do, because we can't run an event in the same way that we have for 1,500 people or 2,000 people. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, but we've also rebuilt ourselves in a wonderful way. So do I think that it's an important time? I absolutely do. Why? Because I'll speak for people in the United States. They're realizing that no government is going to take care of them. No politician is going to take care of them. The economy is a challenge. Journalism is a challenge. Religion is no longer what it used to be. Medicine isn't healing the condition. The environment is changing. So what are we left with? No matter what your belief is around whatever COVID is or where it came from, you're still left with you being able to take care of yourself. So what an incredible time. And we have worked so hard as a community to self-regulate. We know that you can strengthen your immune system when you open your heart. You could release so many wonderful antibodies just by trading fear for gratitude, and strengthen your immune system, and you'll be immune to the environment. And that's the name of the game. And we have the resources and all of the innate capacities to rise to a greater level of consciousness. That doesn't mean that COVID or some virus doesn't exist, but if you're at a different level of consciousness, well, there are so many great studies of Buddhist monks being injected with bacteria and viruses, and they have no symptoms. So for me, I think it's a great time. I think more now than ever, this is the time where we really have to unify and realize that we have to apply this work to a greater level. And to applying this work to a greater level means people have all the tools to decide what information they choose to believe, accept, and surrender to that programs their autonomic nervous system into an outcome. And there are people in my life that I know that have, well, watched the news every day, got exposed to the information in a state of fear, and developed all of the symptoms, went for their test and were completely negative. Now, what does that tell you? The information that they were accepting, believing, and surrendering to was programming their autonomic nervous system to make the exact pharmacy of chemicals equal to the very thing they were afraid of. But they tested negative. They just had the body aches, the fevers, and all those other things. That's how powerful we are. That's called the nocebo, developing the side effects of something that you have a concern about. So the application of this knowledge during this time and moving to a greater level of consciousness still allows those conditions to exist, and you can be aware of them, but you're not controlled by them. And I think that because people are having such challenges with this time, what we would call uncertainty or the unknown, this is really the perfect place to create from. And I'm proud of our community because we are creators. I'm proud of our community because they're doing their walking meditations. I was out last night doing mine. I'm proud of our community because they wake up every day and they're being defined by a vision of the future instead of the memory of the past. And you got to be careful what information you do accept, believe, and surrender to, because that information is causing you to think a certain way, believe certain things, feel certain ways. And how you think and how you feel is your state of being, and that's your personality. And your personality is intimately connected to the same personal reality. So to change then your personal reality, you got to change you. And what a great time to really sit down and do that.
Well, beautiful, and thank you. Yes, we have a choice, right? We have a choice what to look at and what to believe in, how to feel, even though that a lot of new students, they having trouble to really understand that there is a moment that we can change our attention from to something else that is actually much more beneficial for us. But with that being said, it's not only COVID that is preoccupying our minds and our environment. But in the last couple of weeks, there's been other things that have been happening in the world overall, in the States especially. This big Black Lives Matter movement that happened, which added I guess energetically to the confusion, or a lot of emotions have been released. Here personally, locally in Poland, we deal, I think, with a dangerous, I would say dangerous wave of intolerance, lack of tolerance. We deal with, when I'm talking about intolerance, it's about any kind. It's about political views, it's a religion, even though that we are quite homogeneous country, but maybe church, maybe it's not necessarily religion, but church. It's about sexual preferences, and you can see this dangerous wave where actually to the point that people are going on the streets, protecting own rights and that freedom. So could you, knowing that this piece of information, could you help our students to make sense, or how to reconcile, this, again, another layer of reality that they are, presented with your teaching?
Sure. I mean, my teachings around this subject has never changed. I've always, my message has always been to see the divine in every human being, not their physical body, but the light behind those eyes that is expressing life through a particular gene expression, a particular body. And so what fascinates me more than anything else is this concept of called unconscious bias. And, there are so many great examples of this. As an example, if you tell women before they take a math test that men score better than women, it actually signals a belief, or primes the brain into a belief that they're less than, and they will score less. That is not the truth. If you don't tell them that, they'll score equal or better than men, because they don't have that thought, not consciously. It programs some unconscious bias. African Americans, if they have to check during a college entrance examination their nationality or their race, by checking that, they will score 100 points lower. This is the science behind it, because it primes a subconscious belief or a bias, an unconscious bias. So then all of us then, if we are part of a society and we are social beings, people will say, yes, I stand up for freedom, as long as it doesn't take away money from me, doesn't take away my position in the world. And so you have a majority that says that they're for a certain amount of freedom, independent of race or culture or gender. But this is such a time of unrest, and everybody's being pressed to pay attention more to what they believe is true. And what incredible contrast in the United States. The liberals are extremely preoccupied with the germ. And the conservatives are rebelling against masks. So there's contrast and polarity within polarities. And when that happens during these extremes, a system can't sustain itself any longer. So as a result, information, because of technology, you can begin to witness things that are not right. And because you're separate from your normal preoccupation with your job and your life and traveling and commuting and eating out and going to parties and staying busy, there's other matters that tend to take more of a center and front stage. And injustice is something that has been going around for thousands of years, whatever culture has been persecuted because of their uniqueness. So I like what's happening right now, because you see people in the United States standing up for something that corporations and governments and politicians who have been self-serving have no interest in. And so I like when people come together and unify, because we are social beings. and create some type of unrest. And I love that because it stirs up the normal. It pushes and challenges people to take a look at things and take a look at what is the best for the whole. Mm-hmm. So in the United States, the protests have led to violence on both sides. And then I think that that's just rebellion. But if we're going to move to a greater level of consciousness, it's not striking out in violence. I think what happens is that we have to move even to a greater level of consciousness. The conversation has to lead to some type of action. And I like the idea of people coming together of all races and saying, wow, the government really isn't helping us. The people in the government aren't helping us. Religion is certainly not helping us. Journalism is polarized also. So if you can do this and I can do this, why don't we get together and develop our own community where race doesn't matter, gender preference and sexual preference doesn't matter. What you eat doesn't matter. None of that matters. Let's just get together and somehow cooperate. Let's commune. Let's find a way to collaborate and come up with new ideas, new principles. And it's been said so many times, you can't fix a culture that's broken. What you do is you create something better. And then everybody leaves that consciousness. Well, some may stay and move to another model where it's better and everybody leaves. No one uses an iPhone 2 any longer because everybody's moved to something better. You just evolve out of it. So all the unrest that's being created right now, all the chaos is just a necessity because people cannot be suppressed anymore for our core values, which is freedom and justice and the choice to be happy and equality and equanimity. All those things are so important at this particular time, I think it's going to keep happening until something really finally changes.
So, with that being said, how do we keep cultivating our personal freedom and integrity in a light of restrictions that are being imposed on us?
Wow, that's a bottle of wine in 2 hours. But I will tell you this. What I've seen in just witnessing a community of people at our week-long event, and we are a multiracial, multicultural. Sometimes we have 63 different countries at a week-long retreat. And I don't care what the color of your skin is. To me, it doesn't matter. I don't care what you eat. I don't care how old you are, how young you are, if you're rich or you're poor. I don't care if you've even meditated before, know nothing about it, and your wife or your husband dragged you there. It really doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that once a person has freed themselves from the chains of their own limitations, everybody looks the same to me. Transformation is an energy. It's a glow. And when you break through from your own personal limitations and you feel this incredible feeling of joy and freedom, it's not, and forgiveness and compassion. It's not like you're trying to forgive somebody. That's when you're doing it from a limited consciousness, seeing what you're going to get if you do it. If it's truly just changing your emotions and taking your attention off that person or that past event, the side effect of that is a liberation of energy. And that is available energy for people to heal. It's available energy for people to design a new future, to have a mystical experience, to create a new life. And when we see this change that takes place in a week-long event, and you see many races, many cultures honoring and loving one another, hugging one another, truly coming from their hearts, we are wired to care for one another. We are wired to honor one another. We are wired to tell the truth to one another, to inform one another, to heal one another, to care for one another, to respect one another, to shine for another person so that they can see that they can shine too. That's what a tribe does. That's what a species that's evolving does. We're not individuals. We're part of a collective, and we're contributing to that collective. So true transformation leads to energy actually moving into the heart. We've measured this enough times. And when there's your heart filled with energy and it's opening, and you feel so amazing, there's only one thing you want to do, and that is give. That you want to do something selfless. And the act of selflessness, of giving, actually begins to release oxytocin. Oxytocin is a chemical that signals another chemical called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide signals another chemical that causes the arteries in your heart to literally open up. And just like when the sexual organs get a rush of blood flow and energy, your heart actually opens up with blood flow and energy, and you feel this incredible feeling with the same passion you would feel in the sexual experience. You would have that much love in your heart. And you're looking back at your life, and you see that you wouldn't want to change one thing. It was all perfect because it got you to that moment, and everybody is okay because you're okay. And when you're okay and you feel good, you want other people to feel the way you feel. And so there's only one thing you can do, and that is give. Now, you have a tribe, you have a culture, multi-racial, diverse, that is coming together with new ideas, new consciousness to solve problems that were created from a limited consciousness. This is the prophecy of a new consciousness coming. It isn't one person, one being coming. It's a collective consciousness that emerges in one mind and one heart that can solve the challenges and problems that were created from a limited consciousness. So I've seen transformation enough times to know that when this starts to happen, and people start really saying, okay, if I'm going to change the world, I better start with myself. Mm-hmm. If I don't like war, I can't be warring with anybody in my life. If I am at odds or warring with anybody in my life, I don't get to stand up for peace until I am the example of it. And if you are anxious and nervous and fearful and rigid and judgmental, and that's the program you're working on overcoming because you want to evolve your experience of life, and someone else is working on their short temper and their anger and their frustration and their hostility and their arrogance and importance, and they want to overcome that, and they're not blaming any government, any religion, any doctor, any priest for the challenges, their past, their parents, for who they are. They're taking it on because the challenges are equal to their certain level of consciousness or unconsciousness. And everybody's doing that. Mm-hmm. And everybody's making their own effort to be the example. And you show up one day, and I know you, but something about you is different because you're not matching the memory that I have of you. My pattern recognition, that's how the brain learns, is not equal to my memory of who you are right now. Something's off. Something's different. I notice your smile, the way you move, the way something is out of phase. That means you're no longer the known. You're the unknown. And all of a sudden, you're smiling more and you're laughing more and you're making light of situations and you're believing in your future and you're not talking about your past and your heart is open and I can feel it. You're giving me permission now to do the same because everybody's looking for somebody to do this. Everybody's waiting for some leader to do it. This is not a time it's going to be one leader. When you study that concept in biology called emergence, where you see all the birds flying in one pattern and the fish moving in one direction, there's no one leader everybody's following. Everybody is leading, not for the recognition of being the number one. That's a different consciousness. For the exact cause of giving the appearance of something bigger, something larger, unifying. When we do that as a collective and a new consciousness is emerging, then we won't be so tolerant of some of the things that were built in old models of selfishness. They can still exist, and that would be somebody else's fight. But we would be doing something different. We would be connecting as a new culture, as a new community. And I think when we do this properly and we care for one another and we're kind to one another and we love one another and we're present with one another and we inform one another of the truth and we heal one another, corporations and governments and all the things that people think they need in order to be happy becomes the illusion. And when people are happy for no reason, because they're expressing a greater intelligence through their nervous system, a greater level of order, a greater level of coherence, a faster frequency of love, and their hormonal systems have changed, their gene expression has changed, their immune system has changed, their genetic destiny has been altered because they're in a different body, they're in a different life, they're in a different time. You get enough people doing that, then I think that the way we change the world is we work on changing ourselves. And when we truly see the world from a different level of consciousness, I think we will make better choices for the elongation of this species. No species in nature survives in competition. We survive in cooperation. We have to take care of one another. And all of this is coming to the surface. And it's coming to the surface because people need to see that there are selfish individuals that really are just interested in their own, what they can get. And now when this new consciousness emerges during this particular time, anything that isn't consistent with that has to come to the surface. And all the chaos that's happening is just novelty. It's information that's new, and everybody's starting to see that the infrastructure of how it's built, where there has been inequality on every front, and there has been a lack of true information given to people. I think something amazing is going to emerge. And when we stop judging and being violent, I think something really cool is going to happen. We're going to start cooperating in a whole new way, and we'll resolve those challenges equal to a greater level of awareness.
Thank you.
It seems like every time I do an interview, the gardeners come with the blowers and the weed whacker. It's just a running joke in my, yesterday it happened. We just got to get everybody in the neighborhood on my schedule.
Hey, life happens when we make other plans, right? So
that's exactly the truth.
So with what you said, how can we, like, going even a little bit deeper and further, how can we support parents? Because I also see, again, in Europe, because I got to spend some time here now, like a dangerous trend, how kids are being, let's call it maybe programmed, to a new level of fear, because they potentially can be they can present danger to older population. So there's this weird model going around that, hey, if you you don't go see your grandparents because you may infect them, and then it will be on you. So it's just creating this weird different level of fear. And then parents are asking, how do we, especially now, how do we prepare our kids, or how do we support them so they don't absorb anything or everything that is being presented to them? How do we teach them in those times?
I think it's a great question, and I don't think there's a really simple answer to it, but I will tell you this. I am the father of 3 children, and I have never been closer to my children than in this time. Well, first of all, I'm on the same time zone for the last several months, and I'm healthier than I've been in a long time, and I'm in balance, and I have the time to move away from the travel schedule that I had to really find out what matters to my children. And I have had, listen, if you're a parent, you have the time to really connect with your children. Open a bottle of wine. If that's not cool, sit down and have a glass of water with them, or whatever it is. Sit down and have a meal with them and start asking them, what do you believe about all this? What do you believe to be true? I mean, I've done that. My youngest son, he's a very practical person. He's very, very practical, and he can find anything in 2 seconds. Like, he's skilled to find information. And he has such a unlimited perspective about all of this. And I've challenged him around certain beliefs that he's had. And there's no right or wrong answer to the conversation. But there is a mutual respect for both of our opinions, and the dialogue continues. My other two children, the same way. I've sat down just like I'm sitting down with you, and I've talked to them and been present with them without being on my phone, without running around and talking to staff and doing many things at the same time. I want them to be free thinkers. I want them to ask themselves, do I know this to be true, or am I just assuming it's true? And there's nothing wrong with healthy inquiry. I think healthy inquiry is a frontal lobe process. And if they don't have the answers, without making one up or without believing what they've read, go out and find the answers that feel right for them. And then let's try it on. So with parents, I think the best thing we can do for our children, number one, is be the example of everything that you want them to be. Why? Because children pay attention more to how you behave than what you say. You can't say to a kid, stop being an emotional basket case, and yell at them, you're an emotional basket. They're gonna model that behavior. There's no alignment. There's no coherence with that. There's something off. So healthy inquiry, being the example for our children, challenging them into a conversation that takes them to a greater level of consciousness, not in an argumentative way, but everybody weighing in with their experience. Now, technology can really kidnap children from this real three-dimensional world, and they can get lost in the virtual world, and they start to use their device as a great way to distract them from some of those feelings that they have that they can't make go away. And everybody, like my youngest son, who's studying architecture still, he's challenged because he's going to a great university and known for its reputation in architecture, but he has no labs. He can't go to the studio anymore because there's just so he's frustrated that he can't, do the things and learn the things he wants to learn. But again, I don't want to be victim to that. Let's find another way. Let's find a way to be faced with a great opportunity that's brilliantly disguised as an impossible situation, and find a solution and teach yourself. Let's figure it out. Let's figure out another way. Because if you can, then you'll rise above everybody else's belief of what's happening, and they're victimized by it, and you're no longer victimized by it. I would say that you would be more creative as a person. So yes, we can't be in the physical presence of our loved ones, some of us, and that should be something that we do to honor elderly people if they're on medications that can potentially enhance the infection. It may not be a good idea to be with a grandparent who has a health condition, a pre-existing health condition, because they're more susceptible. There's a whole bunch of things that we have to honor with people. But by the same means, you could sit down just like this and have a great visit with your grandparents, great conversation with them. Tell them how much you love them. Tell them how much you believe in them. Tell them they're going to be okay. Listen to their stories, even though they're the same stories. Ask them questions about those stories. I mean, my daughter was so great with my mother. She would just find a way to ask a question. And my mother would just start talking about all these things we didn't know anything about. Like we never knew half the things because no one ever asked her the right question. We were like, how come you didn't tell us that? You never asked me. Oh, well, that opened up a whole nother way to relate. So being victimized by it would be an excuse to say, I can't see my grandparents. I can't, be with my friends. But what a great time for us to redefine how we communicate. What a great way to find a way to still be out in nature. Open your focus to the world. Get out of your device. I tell my kids from the time they were little, here's the rules. If you're on your device and I ask you a question and you can't hear me and don't answer me, you lose it. There's nothing wrong with it. You can't have it. You have to be able to interact. Also, do something in nature, rock climb, surf. My kids are all outdoor people. They set their cell phone down. They could set it down for a half a day and surf, the whole day and do whatever they do, or rock climb or hike or whatever they're into, a kiteboard and motorcycles and all that stuff. They're not thinking about their phone when they're doing that. They come back to their phone and they're less enticed by it. They're more into the experience of life. And we want children to have one foot in both worlds, to be technologically savvy, to be able to gain information, to be able to communicate. Yes, to be able to make things easier for them in their life. But by the same means, if they can't interact with their grandparents, if they can't interact and watch a sunset with their mother, if they can't learn something because they're too preoccupied with what's being said on social media, then they're kidnapped by technology. And the problem with this is, as they get older and it's time to learn, or it's time to resolve an issue in their life that's making them feel uncomfortable, instead of relying on something outside of them, a video game or something to take away that feeling, they'll have the the skill sets to be able to address it and know how to change themselves from the inside out. So I spent this time, we've done 2 children's meditations for children, and I just released 2 walking meditations for children between the ages of 5 and 12, and kids between the ages of 12 to adults, for families to do something together. You want to go on a vacation? You want to create something cool in your life? Everybody walks. It's 30 minutes. See what happens. Try it out. See if you create your life. Try it out. Make that a family thing instead of sitting around and watching the news. Get creative. Start doing art. Sit down and have an hour where you paint with your kids, or play backgammon with your kids and ask them questions. They don't know what you're doing, but you're getting to know them better. Find a way to make the memory of this thing as something really cool and fun. Like, wow, I really had a great time with my mom during this particular time, instead of, oh my God, my kids drove me crazy. I couldn't wait for them to get out of the house. Well, you're the one that's raised them. Find a way to connect and make it an experience that was sort of great experience. I mean, a great experience. And we want kids to believe in themselves. We want kids to believe in a future. We want kids to be the seeds that really change this world, the way we live, the way we've left it, in some way.
How do we support, or how parents could communicate to children that are at the age that their capacity to process this new reality is different because of the age, and the brain doesn't have it's not fully developed to process that information? So how they could help them to make sense out of this reality?
Well, yeah, sit down with the kid and ask yourself, what is your greatest understanding of this reality that's in front of you? You're going to influence the way they think and act and feel. So make sure it is your greatest truth around it and it's unbiased. So one of the greatest ways to do it, besides conversation with older kids, but with younger kids, find a way to ask them what they think is happening. Listen to what they think is happening and help them understand that that's not the truth. Bring them to a greater level of truth. Ease their fear, ease their anxiety, ease their worry. Teach them how to open their heart and strengthen their immune system. Tell them stories before they go to bed of kids doing amazing things and creating the lives they want. Tell them stories that fascinate them about possibility. Find a way to talk to them about your own limitations, your own things you're working on, and listen to the wisdom that comes out of their mouth when they start talking about things they're aware of. Teach them things that will be meaningful. Show them what love does to a little seed. Show them what hate and anger does to a little seed that's germinating. Have them interpret the laws when they see it, what it does to them. They'll never forget it. So if a parent is preoccupied with their own social media, if they're preoccupied with their own video games and their own gaming, if they're preoccupied with their emails and their computer and their texts and all that stuff, and they're inhibiting their children from the same experience, there's some type of dissonance going on there. Set up a time when kids can do that. Have them have time on their computer and their technology, but only after they've done all their chores, after they've done all their homework, after they feel a sense of satisfaction. I guarantee you, they'll be less likely to spend time on their computer. They're only spending time on there because they're resisting what they have to do, and the discomfort is causing them to seek something that's going to hijack their pleasure centers in their brain. So if you do it after they've completed everything and they have a sense of self-satisfaction, they'll be less dependent on technology. So it's got to be something that we all adhere to, something that we all do. And finally, when you wake up in the morning with your children, I find it so valuable to connect with them, especially if they're young. Hey, I have to work today. So from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock, I got to work. You guys do your Zoom calls with your school. At 11 o'clock, we'll break. We'll have a snack. We'll go outside. We'll sit down. Then mommy's got to start up again at noon. And at noon, you guys go outside and play basketball. I'll call you in. We'll come in. We'll have lunch. Then we have to go shopping. We'll put our masks on. We'll go shopping. We should be back in the afternoon. You guys can play. Tonight, we'll eat dinner together. We'll get on the phone. We'll Zoom. We'll Skype grandma and grandpa, or Zoom grandma and grandpa. And then at night, if you want to watch the basketball game, you can watch the basketball game, but only after all your homework is done, and I'll watch a little bit with you guys. How's that sound? Set it up so they have structure. So you can say, remember, I said you guys were going to play at this particular time while I did some other things. Yeah, of course, there's going to be unforeseen circumstances, but there's structure for them to adhere to that gives them the ability to relax into a day and not feel like they're not being noticed, that they're not being cared for because everybody's too busy to care for them. So I think there's ways around it always. I think there's ways, and children are so adaptable. And the best part about kids is that as a parent, you could fail miserably 10 days in a row and they'll still forgive you. You know what I mean? It's just the way kids are.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful, and thank you for providing that information, because there's a lot of people in community that are, you know, I sense that they're conscious parents. They observe the reality. They worry, but worry in a sense that how that information is landing on their kid, and you know, being conscious parent, they don't want to push too strongly what they believe in right now. So there's this, how do we find a balance that we don't want the kid to believe in everything that is out there? At the same time, how do we explain to 6-year-old, you know, the truth that we believe in, and we want to have that grain planted and seeded? So
yeah, sure. Sit down with me. Let's do a little, I want you to sit with me. I'm going to show you a picture of what a virus looks like. I want to show you that your immune system is fighting viruses all the time. I want you to know that not everybody who gets this virus dies. In fact, the statistics are very low. Some people get sick, some people don't get sick at all. And it's a function of how strong your body is. So let's work on making our bodies really strong. When you get angry, when you get upset, you're going to when you do that a little bit, it's okay. But if you keep doing it, it's going to weaken you a little bit. So let's learn. I'll support you when you're upset to just work on getting over it really fast. And you support me when I'm upset, that we get over it really fast. Now, that's not the ultimate truth, but it's a stepping stone that helps a kid understand, wow, I have some control over this. The lack of control, the lack of predictability is what, and the perception that things are going to get worse is exactly what creates a stress response. And that's what actually weakens the immune system. So people are showing up sick because their immune system is compromised, but they don't think they have any control over their immune system when in fact they do. So, and then you may change your mind. You may say, hey, listen, I want to tell you my next truth. And let's talk about that. And it could be the more evolved truth, or it may just be your truth, but you're the steward, you're the parent that's instilling information into a child. And so I always ask myself when I talk to my kids, I better make sure I'm giving them my greatest understanding of the truth and nothing more. And tell them I'm speaking from my present state of ignorance. This is my level of consciousness. Do I think there's more? Yeah. So excuse me if I change my mind in a month. I've done that with my kids since they were little. I mean, they're just so adaptable, and the ability to be neuroplastic and be able to think in new ways. And I was just telling someone this week, my daughter is such a brilliant mind. Like, she will sit down with you and listen to everything you say and ask the most incredible questions. And not in an intimidating way, but you get to realize what you know and you don't know when you talk to her. And that's good, because I want to know what I don't know so that I can evolve my experience. So those are healthy conversations. So it's not so much about being right and wrong. It's more about teaching children how to think for themselves and find the information that somehow, by pure reason and a methodical stream of consciousness, is an evolution of your last understanding. I think that leads us to a door or a way out. And those children will be more creative, I think, later on in their lives.
I absolutely love it, because it's not about, I think, my truth is that it's not about right or wrong, black or white. It's how we can stay flexible in a world that is constantly changing, and with the new information, and it is okay, and it's giving ourselves permission to upgrade ourselves with that new information, and not to be afraid that, hey, well, that was my true, yesterday, but today I'm a new version of me. And
but I would never force my truth on you.
Yes, absolutely.
I would never say, Kasha, you have to believe what I believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the work that I do, I will tell you, I give people my greatest understanding of the truth and numerous opportunities to experience it. Nothing else. That's it. Why? Because I want them to come to their truth. And the person who's had a turbulent past, that was abused physically, sexually, emotionally by somebody, is going to have a different perception and experience of life than someone that was raised in a caring, loving family with two parents that were really encouraging them to be the best they possibly could. Now, neither one of those people are right when it comes to life. What it is, it's an evolution from adversity. So then, when we see it in that way, I think that the truth that we have at that time is a platform to move to a greater truth or to a greater understanding. And everybody has their own truth. And I don't want to force my truth on you, because the person who had the turbulent past has her truth. And it is a valid truth based on her experience. But the one that's on the journey to overcome her past, who's so excited about life again, will tell you that they needed to go through that to get to where they are. So I always think there's a greater order on some level that we can see, chaos is just unpredictable order. There's a spiraling out of information, of energy, the novelty of we're moving into the unknown. We can't predict what's happening right now. And I think that is a place of the unknown, and get enough people in the unknown instead of living in fear and the stress hormones, because that's what elicits the stress response is the unknown. Learn how to execute in that unknown and watch out. That's the perfect place to create from. And so getting people to their edge, whatever their edge is, the person who was raised by two parents that were loving and encouraging, maybe an only child, and they need to learn how to realize it's not just about them. There's more than just them. I mean, they have their own challenges. Everybody does. And so I think it's important for us to respect everybody's truth for where they are. And I just want to know, me personally, where's my blind spot? Is there a greater truth that I could understand? And I'm not going to quit until I come up with the next model of understanding. Now, we were just joking before we got on the call, because the meditations that I listened to that I've done years ago, I listened to that. I'm like, who is that guy? Like, that's not me anymore. I got to redo all of those, because I want it to be consistent with who I am right now. And then I hope I come back in a year from now and say, that's not me either. And keep evolving my own experience. And wow, what a great opportunity. You're not going anywhere. You're not seeing anybody. You're not doing anything. What a great time. Everybody always wanted time. Everybody always wanted to work from home. Everybody's getting their wish. Now, what are you going to do with it? You're going to you're going to complain about the fact that you can't go out any longer when you were secretly wanting to work from home and not be in traffic? What do you want to reinvent yourself to be when all this changes, so that you step outside and I see you and you don't fit the memory of who I remember you to be. You're out of phase. You're in the unknown. You're changing. And I like what I see, and I want to be more like you. That's how we inspire one another.
Oh, beautiful. So the last question, hopefully the last one. How not to confuse our emotional thinking or behavioral habits with accepting and loving ourselves. Because when we talk about, like we have those patterns that are keeping us trapped. So there was a question, okay, so what about accepting who we are?
Listen, I want to just respond to this, because I just wrote a blog, just finished it yesterday, because people think that my message is to not feel emotions. I did a Facebook Live yesterday, and everybody was so busy that I was on it by myself, and then I get the little thing that says, sorry, your internet connection's unstable, right? And then it says, but I see the time, 26 minutes, and while I'm talking, but I finished the whole thing, and I wasn't even broadcasting. And I thought, wow, that was such a great thing. And now I was so upset I had to do it again, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not that we shouldn't emote or we shouldn't feel. Mm-hmm. I think that we have to move through the feelings. The question is, how long are you going to stay there in that emotion? Because if you're going to stay there for a long time, it's going to influence your thoughts and your behaviors. So I had to get up, get beyond my frustration, discouragement, sit down and see it as an opportunity to deliver it again and be present and do it. Now, if you do that and you overcome a little bit more of yourself, when you overcome some aspect of yourself, you're becoming more of who you want to be. Mm-hmm. I could have just said, screw it, I'm not doing one for another month. My staff wasn't there and blah, blah, blah. And I could have blamed everybody, and I could have stayed there the whole entire day. When people do this properly and they overcome themselves, they love themselves more. Now, not like I'm so important, look how great I am. It's not aggrandizement. It is a feeling of peace. It is a feeling of wholeness. That is the fracturing of the self tends to form more wholeness and unity. We see this in some of the research we've done. Now, people confuse self-love with pleasure. Mm-hmm. And I say, the more whole you are, the less dependent you are on pleasure to make you feel better. Now, it doesn't mean that if I sit down and have a meal with somebody, I'm not going to be totally into the experience. I'm going to be so present with the experience that I'm going to celebrate through my senses with my awareness. Every scent, every smell, every taste, every look. I want it to be beautiful. Why? Because the only thing we take with us is our memories, right? So I want to create as many memories that allow me to build from that. So a person who is in lack and separation, is fractured and isn't whole, then they will confuse their understanding of self-love. They will think that when they get their wealth, when they get their new relationship, when they get everything they want, then they'll feel love. The problem is the lack is never fulfilled. They always want more, right? So I think that it takes a great level of awareness to be able, and the concept in neuroscience is called metacognition, to sit and look at yourself. Last night before I went to bed, I said, how did I do, Joe Dispenza? How'd you do today, really? And I saw where I lost it, where I fell from grace. I saw where I could have done a better job. I could have shortened my emotional reaction. I saw that I could have probably waited before I communicated in that state, but I want another chance at it. Mm-hmm. I want another opportunity at it to evolve that habit into something greater. And I want to be a great leader who doesn't do that and has to work his way back. I want to be able to go, okay, I'm going to go back and do it again without missing a beat. That's why I want another opportunity to do it in that way. If I'm going to blame someone, I'm going to make an excuse. If I'm going to get frustrated and angry, then it would never be about me. It would be about everybody else that everybody was doing whatever they were doing. But in the end, I create my reality, right? So I created that, whether I like it or not. And then, of course, the very teaching I was giving was the very opportunity I had to actually live that teaching. So I love that idea because I want people to always understand that they're creating reality. Now, when a person starts creating the reality that they want, and they see the synchronicities, the serendipities, the coincidences happening in their life, and they're getting feedback from the universe that there's a vibrational match between their energy and their future. When the future actually lands in their lap, and they're so in awe of life, this level of love is not like I love me. It's like I love my life. I love life. And when you love life, you're part of it. Like you'll love your coffee cup. You'll love your car. You'll love your house. You'll love the way you look. You, in fact, won't even care about what people think about you or the way you look. You're just happy with you. Now, when that happens, and I see this in our events, people who love themselves know how to love others because it's taken them a lot to love themselves. People who are kind to others are kind to themselves. People who respect themselves will respect others. People who judge themselves will always judge others. People who are angry with themselves will be angry with others and angry with life. People who are frustrated with themselves will be frustrated with others. People who don't honor themselves will not honor others. And until they come to the reckoning, to the understanding where they have their own breakthrough from that and have the ability to observe themselves. It's so important to see yourself through the eyes of someone else by asking yourself, how am I doing? What could I change about me to change my life? Not who can I get rid of or who can I attack, but I got to change the way I think. I got to change the way I act, and I got to change the way I feel to change my life. Why? Because how you think and how you act and how you feel is your personality. And your personality is completely connected to your personal reality, which means if you want to change your personal reality, you want to change your life, you got to change you, not anybody else. So when the person starts making those fundamental changes, they change their personality. And those synchronicities are coming up and the serendipities are coming up. The experience of the unknown is being landed in their lap, and the thrill, the excitement, the inspiration of the synchronicities changing their energy to want to create more. Now they're not waking up in the morning going, oh, I got to create my life today. Oh, no, they're like, I don't want the magic to end. And so people come to this work for all kinds of reasons, Kasia. They come for wealth, they come for health, they come for relationships, they come for the mystical, they come to be part of a community. And I can tell you, after all of these years, I now know that people come for wholeness. And when you're so whole with who you are, and you're not getting the rush of chemistry from your outer environment, but you're connecting to something within you, that organized intelligence that we can only call pure love, and you take your attention off of everything material and you put it on it and you say, I don't want anything else. I don't want my coffee, my tea, my breakfast, my shower, my phone. I want you. I want to connect with you. I want to be so present that I move closer to you. I'll tell you, we know what that looks like on a brain scan. I showed those scans to a group of scientists the other day and they jumped out of their chair. That person was connected to source. They were having an arousal, and the arousal wasn't coming from fear, wasn't coming from aggression or anger or pain. Nothing from the environment out there was making them feel that. It was coming from within them. They run into that. It changes them. It changes who they are. And now they're realizing it never was coming from out there. It was coming from within them. And they get serious about removing anything that stands in the way between them and their date with the divine or connection to that intelligence. And when that happens, they're less seduced by the environment. They're less seduced by the news. They're less seduced by television, soap operas. They're less seduced by their cell phone. Their experience of a sunset is different than most people because they're so present. They're so in love with life. They're so enamored in the moment that they don't want to miss anything. And it's not about the denial of life. The abstaining from life. It is about sinking your teeth into life with everything. And if you go through it fully, immersing yourself in the experience so that you evolve yourself to some degree. And when we do that properly, and we are more loving to ourselves, and we honor ourselves, we honor a flower, we honor traffic, we honor everything is part of life, and we feel connected to it. Being connected to life now all of a sudden changes our experience of life. And so then self-love then is the process of overcoming. You overcome, you keep overcoming, and it may take you months, but I'm telling you, that moment you overcome and you become something else, that is the moment you'll be in love with life, and you will celebrate life, and life will be celebrating you in some way because you're now connected to it.
Wow, that's so inspiring and worth pursuing. Thank you so much for that. Do we have a quick minute for last question? I know you have a tight schedule, so I just want to honor your time.
Okay, I'm going to give you a quick answer.
Okay, quick answer. And absolutely, it's a quick answer. There's a question from a person who is wondering and trusting, of course, if it's possible to regrow hair after radiation.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We've seen people do that in this work, and I've seen people do it not in this work. The radiation is a very hostile frequency that's targeting a tumor or a cancer, and it's a very high frequency that causes the body to weaken, and as happens from chemotherapy as well. If the person has hair or had hair before the radiation, the likelihood of it coming back is usually very good. And all they have to do is just get into that heart again, and that's where regeneration takes place. In fact, a friend of mine's sister joined the healing group. She knew nothing about really my work, and we got her into a remote healing group, and they worked on her, and she made some really important changes. Serious cancer. Went back to the doctor just the other day. No sign, nothing. Cancer anywhere, and her organs are working completely, and she got all her hair back. So it's a great story.
Thank you so much. I know you have to jump. You gotta go to the next appointment. So thank you for your time. Appreciate. Well, and we cannot wait to see you in Poland, but hopefully in the meantime we will be able to see you this way again.
Okay. Thank you so much for everything that you do, Kasia.
Thank you so much. Thank you.